administration have done everything in their power, as we relay to you here every day, example after example. They've done everything they can to mitigate and reduce the harm to the American people. He's gone out of his way to find creative solutions to ensure our service members don't miss a paycheck, for example, to ensure that the WIC program, that the nutrition assistance to women, infants, and children is still flowing. President Trump has proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that if there is any way to fund these programs that are drying up now, that he will do it. Any way to fund SNAP during the Democrat shutdown, you can be assured that your commander-in-chief would do it. But we are now reaching a breaking point. Thanks to Democrats voting no on government funding now 14 different times, SNAP benefits for millions of American families are drying up. It's about 1 in 8 people in this country who rely upon this to literally put food on their table. And the blame for this lies 100% with the senators sitting over there on the Democrat Party. They are the ones who have locked arms and decided over and over and over and over, 14 times now, to vote against these services being provided. And now I want you to think about that. You're going to have real people, real families. You're going to have children who will go hungry beginning this weekend when those resources dry up. They rely upon that, and yet the Democrats continue with their political games in Washington while people are sitting around the dinner table without the resources that they need. The administration has done all it can to keep this program afloat, but the limits have been reached here. And what are the Democrats doing today? Where are the Democrats? Are they in the Senate today? No, they're out campaigning. While critical SNAP benefits run dry, the Democrats have skipped town. They've abandoned their post in the Senate, and the reason that's so important and noteworthy for the American people is the Senate is the only place where this can end. The last hope of reopening the government before millions of Americans go hungry. They've abandoned their post. Democrats are now this is the incredible part, they're now trying to somehow blame Republicans for cutting off SNAP when Republicans, remember, are the ones who have voted 14 times for the SNAP benefits to flow. It's the Democrats who voted every single time to turn that off. The same Democrats who've been perfectly fine with defunding SNAP and WIC for over a month now are suddenly claiming to be outraged that Republicans and President Trump can't just wave some magic wand and fix the mess that they themselves have created. If they're suddenly waking up to the Rick Robinson Show, the Friday edition, don't forget the weekly news roundup. Simple way to fix it. They can come back in here and vote to reopen the government. But we don't think they're going to do that.
I know the show started out of order, but I wanted to carry this live since I just found out
you've got many more people now.
We're doing a topsy-turvy show today, but back to the press conference.
There's a handful of moderates still in the Democrat Party, and they are very upset about that. The tension is rising. You had Senator John Fetterman of Pennsylvania, for example, who just yesterday, I think it was, accused his own party of, quote, playing chicken with the food security of 42 million Americans. He's right. And you've seen now the avalanche of people and organizations and institutions calling on the Democrats to reopen the government and vote for the clean CR. You got labor unions, you got the largest airlines in America, you got independent voters. Working class Americans across the country, they are all pleading with the Democrats to do their job and stop using their hardships, the people's hardships, for the Democrats' political games in Washington. Yesterday, there was a lot said, written about an editorial that was in the Washington Post. I commend it to your reading if you haven't seen that, but it reads in part just one line out of that. I would like to stand up here and read you the whole thing. The Washington Post, as you know, is not generally on my side. They said, quote, Democrats openly acknowledge that they refuse to do this, reopen the government, because it would mean giving up their leverage. If they persist, it will mean families start to go hungry. Now, look, this isn't some novel idea. As you know, the Democrats have always traditionally said, breathlessly, given speeches passionately saying that you've got to keep the government funded. You should never shut it down. It would be so dangerous. And we've recounted this over and over. I mean, I literally could be here all day reading the Democrats' own past statements on the perils of shutting down the government, but I'm just going to highlight a couple this morning because they're relevant and timely. I'll begin with Senator Coons. He's the senior Democrat senator from Delaware. In 2013, he said this, quote, "Our democracy cannot function if the majority party threatens to shut down the government unless it gets its way," unquote. And that was Senator Coons in 2013. And what is he saying now? Earlier this week, he said, quote, "Frankly, this is our only moment of leverage." Quite a switch. Bernie Sanders has got a lot of airtime here lately, and back in 2018, Senator Bernie Sanders said this, quote, "The truth is that shutting down the government is a serious and dangerous action that we must do everything possible to prevent." That was in 2018. You know what he said this month? Quote, "If we reopen the government, we lose our leverage." Senator Sheldon Whitehouse in 2013, "The shutdown was, quote, entirely unnecessary and has harmed our economy and our reputation in the world. But if we also can't forget, we must never again allow extremist hostage-taking to create this kind of disruption." That was 2013. Just days ago, the senator from Rhode Island said the opposite. It's the only lever we have, meaning the shutdown. What he means is that the pain of the American people is their political lever. I guess he's forgotten his cries of alarm over the extremist hostage-taking. And how about the House? And infamously now, we all know, the Democrat whip, Catherine Clark, the second highest ranking Democrat in the House, said, quote, just last year, she said, "They are taking a non-issue, a false flag, and saying this is the reason we can't proceed. It is a dangerous precedent to be threatening a shutdown." That's what she said in 2024. And what'd she say about a week ago? The opposite, quote, "Of course, there will be families that are going to suffer here, but it's one of the few leverage times we have." Many House members have echoed the same hypocrisy, and I'm not going to waste our time with it this morning, but I do want to leave you with this quote from Chuck Schumer, because he is the actual architect of the shutdown. He is the one that is preventing the Senate Democrats from doing the right thing. In March of this year, as you know, he voted on the same CR to avert a shutdown. And he said then, quote, in his speech on the Senate floor and in a bunch of interviews, this is what he said on the Senate floor, quote, "The CR was certainly bad, but a shutdown would be 15 or 20 times worse. It was a vote of principle." And today, Chuck Schumer, entirely void of principle by his own estimation, said, quote, "Every day gets better for his party." Tell that to the millions of American families facing a hunger crisis now as a direct result of his failed leadership and shenanigans. Those Democrats have all collectively voted 14 times over the last several weeks to reject the clean continuing resolution to fund the government, and they've made it abundantly clear they're going to continue to do that, to hold the American people hostage, so long as it serves their political interest, to look tough to the leftist radicals in their base. Republicans have done our part to end the government, the Democrat shutdown, and now it's time for Democrats to do theirs. The path forward is simple. Please, every American who is concerned about this, every American that is feeling the harm, you should call the Senate Democrats and tell them to stop the nonsense. Echo the voices of the unions, of the airlines, of hardworking people everywhere, and tell them to stop doing this and open the government. We have to do that. 42 million Americans are set to miss meals starting tomorrow, and this should be the easiest vote they've ever taken in their lives. I don't want to belabor this point any longer, because I'm delighted to introduce you to our guest for the daily press conference here. Everybody knows Brooke Rollins, the incomparable, as I call her, the incomparable Brooke Rollins. She leads the U.S. Department of Agriculture. And of course, her department operates and oversees SNAP benefits to all these tens of millions of Americans. We're fortunate to have her here today. She's going to talk about the devastating effects of the Democrats' decisions on all this. And I'm delighted to give her the podium now. Brooke, so thanks so much for being here, Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mike, Mr. Speaker. Really great to be here with everyone. I was reminded I was in the Speaker's backyard in Louisiana over the weekend and on Friday, and we went to a restaurant there, and our waiter by the name of Joe was wonderful. He was a multi-generational Louisiana and New Orleans, and he was our server, and he was just so impressive. And towards the end, he brought up that, well, this is a job he had to take because he was furloughed and so was not making any money, and he worked for the federal government. He didn't know who I was. And I said, well, Joe, I can appreciate that. You know, I'm sort of in that world as well. And I said, where do you work? And he said, well, I work for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in their New Orleans office as part of the financial team. And so it just really brought home for me, to echo what Mike said, just thanking so many thousands of federal workers who are showing up, who are still doing their job, who aren't getting paid, those that are now concerned about putting food on the table and making their mortgages and paying their rent, but to be out in the country, I was in Indiana yesterday, and understand the real sort of pain that's being felt. But just to echo a couple of the themes that Speaker Johnson talked about, again, the idea that the Democrats have now for 14 different votes voted to keep the government closed is absolutely unconscionable. Every day they hold the federal government hostage. They are leaving millions of families' livelihoods and critical benefits, including SNAP, hanging in the balance. Of course, we all know the 13,000 air traffic controllers working without pay, many turning to Uber, taking second jobs in restaurants, et cetera, as this shutdown continues. Hundreds of thousands of federal employees are not receiving a paycheck. Thousands of small business loans are going unapproved each month because of the shutdown, equating to almost $4 billion in capital being taken out of the pockets of small business owners across this country, truly the backbone of our economy. It is a fact that Democrats shut down the government over free health care for illegal aliens and their $1.5 trillion partisan wish list. Democrats need to stop playing politics with the livelihoods of hardworking Americans and open the government now by voting for the clean resolution. We are here today because SNAP benefits run dry tomorrow. So the truth has finally revealed itself, hasn't it? Democrat support for programs like SNAP is now reduced to cynical control over people's lives. This last month has shown that the party who constantly says it puts people over politics does the complete opposite. Millions of Americans, as of tomorrow, will no longer receive SNAP and potentially WIC or even a paycheck. Democrats have instigated a disgusting dereliction of duty unlike anything I have seen in all my years doing this work, all to favor illegal aliens and other radical far-left policies that benefit only a small, tiny sliver of their base. I am embarrassed for Chuck Schumer. He is going out of his way to please the likes of Zohran Mamdani, a man who is polarizing America with his socialist and anti-American principles. The essence of government responsibility is to the citizens who live and work here to protect their interests first, unless you are a Democrat in the United States Senate. Chuck Schumer and the Democrats are doing all this because they fear the socialists and the radicals to their left. Ironically, in leaving American families hungry and American children without food, they are giving a preview of what those socialists will do to every one of us if they ever take power. What you're really seeing here is the end of the Democrats as a responsible party of government, a party that ends governance, a party that ignores Americans, a party that cannot master the most basic principles and processes of government, is a party that cannot be trusted with the reins of power. It isn't oriented toward anything but the end of the system in which it exists. SNAP is arguably just the beginning. The logical and inevitable end to where this all goes is the Democrats and the whole superstructure of constitutional government. President Trump has made it clear, reopen the government, get government funding back on solid footing, restore the confidence of American families who count on programs like SNAP, and stop treating them and their well-being as pawns in a political game, according to the Democrats. Prioritize American citizens, prioritize American families, and prioritize American children. I would like to make a quick note and then want to obviously leave lots of time for questions. Yesterday, I was in Indiana, and I was visiting a soybean farm, sixth generation soybean farm, the Everetts. And they have about 1,500 acres right outside of Indianapolis. We were harvesting corn, but they also do soybeans. And as I was there, it occurred to me that what President Trump has been doing over the last week or weeks in fighting across the world to open up markets for American farmers, for American families, while the Democrats are back here playing political games. It must stop. We must get the government open, and our citizens and these voters and our taxpayers and our families and our children expect no less. Thank you all.
All right, take a few questions. Chad, go ahead. You're standing up in the back. Go ahead.
Hello, Chad.
This question for the Secretary. The minority leader in the House said yesterday, Hakeem Jeffries, that the term he used was lying, that some of these SNAP benefits couldn't be liberated. Can you explain, refute that, give us your perspective, what their perspective is, and what your argument is, why they can't?
Yeah, and I appreciate the opportunity to explain that. So the fact that the Democrats are saying, but wait, USDA has money in their accounts, why it is really their fault, I've seen it over and over and over from some of their leaders, is absolute false, and it is a lie. We have been saying on October 10th, we sent messages out. On October 24th, we sent messages out. These benefits end on November 1st. Now, let me get down into a little bit of the details on that to better explain. So there is a contingency fund at USDA, but that contingency fund, by the way, doesn't even cover, I think, half of the $9.2 billion that would be required for November SNAP, but it is only allowed to flow if the underlying program is funded. It's called a contingency fund, and by law, contingency fund can only flow when the underlying fund is flowing. So for example, if today the Democrats say, oh, never mind, sorry, we'll open the government, and SNAP flows, Hurricane Melissa or one of the hurricanes hits, that's the contingency fund that we would use to send more money into the vulnerable communities that are harmed by a specific event like a hurricane. But it is a contingency fund that can only flow if the underlying appropriation is approved. And listen, even if it could flow, it doesn't even cover half of the month of November. So here we are again in 2 weeks having the exact same conversation.
I'll just add to that. The Democrats are lying about that, and I think they know that. Some of the ones who are out saying it are actually attorneys. They can read the black letter law themselves. They've even filed a lawsuit, you saw, to try to do it. Why? Because they wanted a talking point. They know that's a frivolous piece of litigation. They know they're going to lose, but they also know it'll take many weeks or months to have that ultimately determined by a court because of the way the justice system works. So they're using it as a talking point to try to claim. I believe they know for a fact that what they filed in the court is false. I mean, you know, they're lawmakers. They're supposed to know how the law works. And so the whole thing is just shameful. And they're using the people as pawns in this game. That underlying fund that the Secretary just addressed was unfunded by the Democrats themselves when they voted against the CR. The CR would have kept all this funded, and they chose not to do it. Not once, not twice. 13 times in the Senate, once in the House, 14 overall. Yes, sir.
I'm sure you saw President Trump's tweet last night suggesting that it's time for Senate Republicans to blow up the filibuster in order to get the continuing resolution passed. I know in the past you've been reluctant to encourage your Senate colleagues to do that or not. Are you aligned with the President now that it's time for him to take this dramatic step to reopen the government?
I haven't. The President's been very busy. He was in Asia doing all these trade agreements. I've been a little busy, as you know. We haven't spoken since he returned. I sent him a text earlier this morning. I saw that as well. What you're seeing is an expression of the President's anger at the situation. He is as angry as I am and the American people are about this madness. And he just desperately wants the government to be reopened so that all these resources can flow to the people who need it so much. Look, I'll just say this in general. As I've said many times about the filibuster, it's not my call. I don't have a say in this. It's a Senate chamber issue. We don't have that in the House, as you know. But the filibuster has traditionally been viewed as a very important safeguard. If the shoe is on the other foot, I don't think our team would like it. The Democrats, look, they've said what they would do. They would pack the Supreme Court. They would make Puerto Rico and D.C. states. They would ban firearms. They would do all sorts of things that would be very harmful for the country, and the safeguard in the Senate has always been the filibuster. But again, not my issue, not something I get to even weigh in on. My opinion on this is not relevant. It's the senators. But I think that it just is another expression of the frustration, of the pressure that is being felt, the anger by the president and by me and all of us that we're in this situation at all. Do your basic job. I'm going to say this again. We have put zero Republican policy priorities on the CR. It is Biden-level policies and spending. They have no excuse at all not to support it. They have no excuse to put all this pain on the American people, except that for what we've just articulated and repeated here every day, they want to give a showing to the radical left fringes of their base, and they want to give illegal benefits or benefits back to illegal aliens and non-citizens and all the other crazy stuff that they've claimed. Yeah.
Can I respond?
Sure.
I just very quickly, I have not spoken to the president either since last night, but let me say this. He is, and I've been next to him for almost 9 or 10 years now. He is so resolutely focused on delivering for the American people all day, every day, 7 days a week, 20 hours a day. This is what he is thinking about. And as the world's greatest deal maker, from his perspective, the way he thinks out of the box as a businessman is how do we end this nonsense, and how do we again open the government, and how do we support these families that need support?
Yeah, go ahead. I'd already called on him. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah.
Madam Secretary, question to you. So I know you addressed the contingency fund, but SNAP has never run out of funding in its 60-year history, even during shutdown. Why were past administrations able to find funding to keep it afloat in a shutdown that you can't?
Well, let me see. I've got a chart I want to show you all on the SNAP funding. My charts are slightly wanky because our print shop is closed because we're furloughed. So it was a little arts and crafts time over at USDA early this morning. So this is the chart of the SNAP program. Now, I know everyone can't see this, but this goes back to October of 2023. And I want everyone to follow. This is the red line that under Joe Biden, you see an almost 30% increase in the cost of the SNAP program over the 4 years that President Biden and the USDA was overseeing it with Congress funding it. And you see now the downward trend since President Trump was reelected November, and we've had about 650,000 people move off of SNAP since President Trump was elected. A press conference for another time. That's obviously the goal of all these programs, is to move families into real work and the dignity of that. I say that because the astronomical costs of the SNAP program under Joe Biden was historical. It was unprecedented, and we don't have the same levels of funding that were there in the past. And by the way, for 1 month, we have band-aided and bubble-gummed and duct taped this deal to get this 1 month of funding in for SNAP, the $9 billion. Thank you.
Quick follow-up. I mean, because reality is setting in for a lot of people this weekend. So what do you say to the millions of people who stand to lose their food stamp benefits? What should they do?
My message to America is first, the fact that your government is failing you right now. That poverty is not red or blue. It is not a Republican or Democrat issue. It doesn't matter who you voted for or even if you voted. That if you are in a position where you can't feed your family and you're relying on that $187 a month for an average family in the SNAP program, that we have failed you. But I think what's so important, and this is why we keep hammering this, the Republicans have voted over and over and over again to open this government so that these funds don't stop. And for 14 different times, the Democrats have said, no, we are going to hold hostage the most vulnerable families in this country so that we can get our left-wing radical agenda into the government and the governing structure. And to that, President Trump, Speaker Johnson, Majority Leader Thune have said absolutely not, and we're very grateful for that. Please vote yes. We implore the Democrats in the Senate to vote yes to get this government open and these people, the benefits that they need to feed their families.
And it's clarified. When she says we have failed you, she means we, the Democrats, okay? Because as we've just explained, Republicans have voted 14 times to get this done. The president has pleaded with Schumer and Hakeem to open the government, and they told them no. We're doing everything we can. The Republicans, they say, well, the Republicans are in charge of the federal government. Why can't they get this done? It's simple math. We need 60 votes in the Senate. We only have 53 Republicans. We have to have Democrats. It is the Democrats alone who are failing the American people. And this administration, every cabinet secretary, it's not just Secretary Rollins, every cabinet secretary is bending over backwards to make sure that the American people are served and they get what they need. But we are not magicians. We cannot wave a magic wand. The funds have run out because the Democrats are playing games. And that's why we've been here every day this month pleading with them to do the right thing. And they do not care. They have shown how callous they are. They do not care that people are suffering. And that's who's failed them. It's not the government overall. It's the Democrats who are holding up the government for working for the people. It's a very important thing. Jay, go ahead.
You undoubtedly you've seen some of the modest progress in the Senate. At least people are talking about spending, 26 spending. Number one, I want to get your sense for where things are, your reaction to that. And would you bring the House back if they got some sort of agreement on a number of spending bills?
Yeah, look, the whole point of this is a very important reminder. The reason we're in this mess is because they voted against the clean CR. What was the point of the CR? The CR was merely to buy us 7 additional weeks to finish the funding of the government, the appropriations process. We were working on that in bipartisan fashion and bicameral fashion. As you know, we had a conference committee set to go on 3 appropriations bills that had passed out of the House. They didn't match the Senate exactly. They were going to work through that. That's the process. And our appropriators, the members of Congress who work on all this funding every day, are raring to go. In both parties, in both chambers, they want to get back to that work. And that is the whole point. Chuck Schumer and the leadership are holding that process up. So am I optimistic that we can get back to that? Yes, but we can't do any of it until they take the simple step to vote on that additional time. It's just a stopgap funding measure to make all these services and funding flow to the people so that we can finish that work. They're holding it up. So I'm heartened, Jake, that we have members on both sides. I had a meeting with the chairman of our Appropriations Committee in my office yesterday afternoon. Tom Cole came in. We were talking about the latest and what those appropriators are doing, the things they're working on. I meet with Leader Thune about it almost daily on the subject. We are ready. The next packages of funding bills are being prepared. And yes, we want to pass that off the House as soon as possible. We want to get all 12 appropriations bills done because we're returning to regular order. That's been a commitment of mine since I became Speaker 2 years ago, and it's something that Congress must do to be better stewards of taxpayer dollars. So we don't have, I'm using your handy chart here, so we don't have this spike in spending. We have more responsible spending. The only way to get this, to make the government work better and more efficiently for the people, is to go through that stewardship process, that important obligation that the founders intended and that we have used to respect, but we haven't in a long time. So all of this is entwined in that. We've got to get Congress working again. We're anxious to do it, and the sooner we can get back here and get the lights on, the better. But the number one mission of Congress right now is to turn the government back on. There's too many people's lives and health and hunger at stake. This is not a game. They've got to stop playing games. Remember this, too. The first time in U.S. history that any party has had the audacity to do what the Democrats and the Senate are doing right now. No one ever before has shut the government down over a clean, nonpartisan CR, because it would have been unthinkable until now. And you need to remind them of that. Yes, ma'am. Last one.
The One Big Beautiful Bill contained numerous Medicaid anti-fraud measures. Senator Tuberville recently highlighted a slew of aliens who are receiving these SNAP benefits. Are there any plans to do the same with SNAP and totally reform it just to ensure that it's available only to U.S. citizens?
You want to talk?
Yes, in fact, we've already done that now. So a couple of quick things on I guess the silver lining in all of this is that we're having a national conversation on our SNAP program, that this has sort of shined a light on a program that, especially under the last administration, has just become so bloated, so broken, so dysfunctional, so corrupt that it is astonishing when you dig in. So 3 important things on that. The first, I talked about the extraordinary explosion of benefits under the last administration. And what happened was that the money that was going out was zero accountability. So one of the very first things we did when I was sworn in was send a letter to all the states and to remind everyone the SNAP program is administered through the states and the governor's office. So send a letter to all the states saying no more illegal aliens on SNAP. Period, full stop. So that's already a rule of this administration. We're working to enforce it every single day. The second thing is we began a very serious investigation into a lot of the fraud and abuse that we kept getting anecdotal stories of that no one was doing anything about. And so just in the last, I think, 6 months, we've had major dozens of arrests, fraudulent activity of 50 million here. One guy's registered for SNAP in 6 different states. I mean, it's one thing after another. So we are taking that extremely, extremely seriously. And we'll continue to do so. And then the third thing on this is that for the first time ever, the USDA, has asked the states for their data so that we can ensure that taxpayer dollars are being spent appropriately. Not surprisingly, all of the red states said, yes, please help us with this. We want to do the right thing. We want to make sure there's not all this corruption and fraud. By the way, 2 blue state-led governors also leaned in, Colorado and North Carolina, alongside every one of the red governors. But the other blue states, California, Oregon, New York, Washington, all of them actually sued us and said, oh no, we're not going to give you any data. So the problem is you have an extremely corrupt program, but up until this administration and with President Trump's direct focus on this and making sure every taxpayer dollar is spent appropriately, we've never really had the opportunity to dig in. So we're going to be talking a lot more about SNAP reform. We've got a lot of people listening now, which is very, very helpful, and to take that program back to its original intent of helping those who are truly needy in our community, but not to have a massive welfare benefit where so many people are taking advantage of it that shouldn't be.
And I just want to add briefly, just zoom out a little bit. This is a stark contrast between the 2 parties, the 2 major parties in this country. We talk about the split screen in here very often. On this issue, with regard to reducing fraud, waste, and abuse in government, look, America is the greatest nation in the history of the world. We're the most powerful, most successful, most free, most benevolent nation that's ever been. Part of our benevolence, part of the spirit of America is that we do have these safety net programs. We support that. We have an extraordinary cabinet, like Brooke Rollins here, Secretary Rollins, who is handling and administrating the SNAP program is a good example of that. Medicaid is a good example. Why were they designed and why are they so important and why do we all support those ideas? Because sometimes people really can't take care of themselves. You know, you have the elderly, the disabled, young pregnant women, for example, who are single and they're down on their luck and they need some help. SNAP and Medicaid and these other programs were intended to be a temporary safety net to help people to get back on their feet. But they have been abused. And there are some big government advocates like the Marxists, like the socialists, who want the government to take over everything and supply everything for everybody. But guess what? If the government can give you everything, it can take it away as well, and your freedom is sacrificed. Socialism, don't get me started, has been a great scourge on humanity. I mean, the tens of millions of innocent people in the 20th century alone have died because of it. America stands for something better than that, something different. But the programs don't work if they're loaded down with fraud and abuse. And every single person in this room and every American of common sense should understand the necessity of having people in office, a president in the White House, a cabinet full of secretaries who are dedicated to this in every division of the federal government, and Republicans in Congress leading on this, to root out that fraud, waste, and abuse so the programs can survive. We did that in the One Big Beautiful Bill, in the Working Families Tax Cut. With Medicaid, we went into that and we eliminated the fraud, waste, and abuse. We got able-bodied young men without dependents off the program. They were never intended to be there. They're sitting around on their couches playing video games. Yes, that's an actual study, and they're siphoning the resources away from elderly people, disabled people, and young women who desperately need it. And so the funds were being depleted. We shouldn't go for that. And illegal aliens were never intended to be on any of these programs. They're for U.S. citizens only, law-abiding citizens. This is the team. The Republicans will fix that and save those programs for the country. And the Democrats will continue to abuse it. They sued the USDA for simply asking them to tell them how many illegal aliens are on the programs in California and New York and these other states. They sued them. You need to take account of what people are doing here in each party. The leaders and the President of the United States, we are trying to get government to work more efficiently and effectively for the people, and we are getting stopped and hindered by political games by Democrats. And that's why we're so frustrated. It's got to come to an end. Thank you all for being here this morning.
Thank you, everyone.
You washed me clean, you called me home. Mercy poured where sin had grown.
Not by my works, but by your grace, you made me whole. You took my place.
When I can't see, still I believe your promise stands. You carry me. You're the anchor of my soul, firm and secure. The strength I hold when I'm unsure. My hope, my heart, forever yours. Jesus, you're my anchor and my shore.
Your peace has calmed the storm inside. Your love will ever be my guide.
I'll walk in grace, I'll rest in truth, abiding here, I'm bound to you. In the breaking, in the flame, you remain.
When my strength is gone, my faith still holds.
You're the anchor of my soul. You're the anchor of my soul, firm and secure. The hope that stands forevermore. My faith, my peace, my life restored. Jesus, you're my anchor and my shore. Jesus, you're my anchor and my shore.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Not to be a backseat driver, but can you say for sure you got the best monthly payment possible on your auto loan? Could it be that you might have gotten a better deal by shopping the loan at a few places and have a lower car payment? Next time, before you go car shopping, visit Communication Federal Credit Union first. Our auto loan experts will find you a perfect loan and get you the lowest monthly payment we can. Communication Federal, your auto loan experts. Restrictions apply. Federally insured by NCUA.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
Hi, everyone. This is JJ, the co-founder of Good Pods. If you haven't heard of it yet, Good Pods is like Goodreads or Instagram, but for podcasts. It's new, it's social, it's different, and it's growing really fast. There are more than 2 million podcasts, and we know that it is impossible to figure out what to listen to. On Good Pods, you follow your friends and podcasters to see what they like. That is the number one way to discover new shows and episodes. You can find Good Pods on the web or download the app. Happy listening.
The following program contains coarse language and adult themes. Listener discretion is advised.
From red dirt roads to the Capitol steps, Rick's calling truth, no time for regrets. Fire in his voice, facts in his hand, talking sense to the...
And welcome officially into the opening of the Friday edition of the Rick Robinson Show. We started things a bit out of order because I didn't want to cut any more into Speaker Johnson giving his daily press brief since we're in day 31 of the shutdown. And from all records that I can see, it appears the Democrats have left for the weekend. Interesting, because they keep saying, well, Senate Democrats. I think the House Democrats are still searching under tables because they're used to their party doing bad things under desks and tables. Yeah, they didn't remember a few weeks ago when they were cutting those videos of trying to make fun of, going into the cafeteria and checking under tables looking for Republicans and checking under desks looking for. I don't think they thought that imagery through. Just gonna one word. Humidor. For those of you that have been around for the Clinton era, you know what I mean. All right, anyway, we are here. We are live. It is Friday. I want to thank everybody for taking the time to hang out with us. Got quite a few tuned in already. If you're new around here and you like what we do, tell your friends. Make sure you've hit that subscribe button if you're watching on either YouTube or Rumble. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything. That's not what subscribe means over there. You can also make sure that you are hitting the follow button if you're watching us on X, whether it's on my feed or on the station feed, or heck, click follow on both. I will love you a long time. And then, of course, make sure you've got the notification bells turned on everywhere for all the things. So no matter where we go live, you get a notification. Because we are trying to build our YouTube audience. Since apparently they're taking a shift towards what is supposed to be more of a free speech approach, we're going to test it because YouTube hates us, because I get in trouble all the time for violating their community policy standards for telling people the truth instead of staying with, approved COVID-19 dogma and approved 2020 election dogma. Because, dude, if you ever had any doubts of what happened in 2020, all you have to do is look at the actual data between the 2020 and the 2024 election, because literally Hitler was still on the ballot, and over 1 million people either didn't show up to vote or didn't exist that voted in 2020. You guys decide. It doesn't matter to me. I just know that there were some serious shenanigans that happened in 2020, and there's really no way to get around that fact anymore. It's just the truth of it. Well, I guess that's still playing, huh? I forgot how long my intro is. But anyway, this is now required, even though I blew the timing.
I swear to God, I'll pistol whip the next guy that says shenanigans.
Well, I'm probably going to say it some more, so get ready with that pistol whipping. Oh, all right, so before we get into the seriousness, because we do have to discuss this whole apparently Democrats leaving town thing, which is kind of a cowardly move in my opinion. I do want to talk about this first, though, because President Trump and the First Lady actually had a bit of fun on Halloween. Now, like Washington, D.C., we apparently did our Halloween last night. I know there were some folks that were mad about that. I don't really know why, because to me it made sense, especially because I think the reason they did it that way in our tiny town is because they're doing the costume parade today at my granddaughter's school. So my daughter and my aunt are on the way up there to go get me lots and lots of pictures since I'm stuck at work. But anyway, so I'm looking for a very specific clip, and for some reason it's not loading. So let me see if I can pull it up over here. There it is. All right. So it looks like somebody Namely, President Trump had a reaction to a costume that he saw last night. This isn't a very long clip. I'm just going to play it anyway because I'm trying to at least bring a little bit of Friday fun back to the table. I know it's hard to have fun when we have like millions of people that are about to be stressing about food, but let's try. So if I had to guess, I'd say the guy holding the kid was supposed to be dressed like him. I would guess. I don't really know, but dude, that would be so cool. The one thing that I kind of wish, with as much as I'm involved in politics and as much as I talk about it, it would be cool if I lived in the DC area so I could take my grandkids to go trick or treat at the White House. Although there's probably all kinds of protocol for that because I've never done it before. All right, so all right, let's see what other trouble we can get into real quick. I know things are weird because we've already burned a half hour of showtime talking about the shutdown. But speaking of the shutdown, I have to ask this question, and Matt Vespa asked it first, so I want to give him credit. What the hell is happening to Marjorie Taylor Greene? Now, I will admit she's never been one of my favorite people because I think she is kind of out there sometimes. But here, I don't understand what's going on with her. So this is again from Town Hall, Matt Vespa. We're gonna go over this a little bit, and I'll put the article out on my feed here in a while too. Is Rep. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Republican Georgia, turning into a liberal? That could be happening as the Georgia Republican has opted to hurl a hand grenade inside the GOP tent during the Schumer shutdown, and it's starting to infuriate her colleagues on the Hill. This shutdown was caused by the Democrats, who have now refused to vote for a continuing resolution for Biden's budget a total of 14 times. And for those of you who are wondering, I do ad lib a bit while I'm reading these things because that only makes it fair. And the reason I read through them with you is because I haven't read it yet, so it's hard for me to give an opinion on it without reading through a little bit of it. So, but this is really starting to make a lot of Republicans mad. Again, this was the same resolution that was supported in March, and as was pointed out during the presser just a few minutes ago, where none other than Chuck Schumer said that a shutdown would be 50 times worse than a continuing resolution. Now, my question is, if all of this stuff with Obamacare and the ACA subsidies and everything else was such a big deal, why weren't they clamoring about this back in March when they would have had time to try to bring it to the discussion table to see if anything could be done about it after they got the first CR done? They being the Democrats. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to tell you this one more time. The Obamacare thing, otherwise known as the Affordable Care Act, remember with Democrats, if you want to know what a bill does, look at the title and think the opposite, because the Obamacare stuff has been unaffordable for everyone from the beginning. It became even more unaffordable when Republicans did away with what I consider an unconstitutional mandate to force you to purchase medical insurance. And that, again, is just the truth of it. But so Senator Ted Cruz has had some thoughts about all of this that's going on. So Senator Ted Cruz, Republican Texas, called on people Wednesday to stop listening to Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene from Georgia and suggest that her politics are moving leftward. Greene's criticism of her fellow Republicans has escalated in recent days amid the government shutdown. Speaking on CNBC Squawk Box, Cruz urged people not to spend much time worrying about what MTG is saying. What I've found is that whenever an elected official decides that they are going to turn on Israel and hate Israel, you will very quickly see every other policy out of their mouth become very, very liberal. Cruz continued. And so suddenly Marjorie is for massive government spending and taxes and open borders and amnesty. Okay, fine. That's not where the American people are. Where the American people are is real simple. We're on day 29 of the stupidest Schumer shutdown shakedown ever. Again, ad-libbing a bit. Cruz followed Senator Bernie Moreno, Republican Ohio, plea for Greene to stop openly criticizing House Speaker Mike Johnson. Now, I don't give a damn that she's criticizing the speaker. I don't give a damn that she seems to be turning her back on all of her principles. We watched that happen with Captain Stooping just yesterday. Bill Kristol, the same person who just a decade ago, within the last 10 or 15 years, was one of the people that was prominent within the Tea Party movement at the time that I started coming on board with it and realizing that we had to become politically involved if we wanted things to ever get back to normal in this country, because they were nowhere near normal, and the last 15 years have showed us that over and over and over again. Basically just said yesterday that he would vote for the commie over Cuomo. Now, first of all, I want to know how it is that somebody up until about a decade ago was espousing things like freedom and liberty, and now you're basically filleting the corpse of Marx over communism. I said what I said because that's nuts to me. All of this is nuts to me. But the scariest part is, as we move into another topic as we round out the first hour, is this. In just a few days, we're going to find out if New York City is going to be communist or not. In just a few days, we're going to find out if California has gone past the tipping point, depending on what happens with Prop 50. In just a few days, we're going to find out whether New Jersey has actually got an active brainstem again. These are all the things that we're about to find out about. We've got the race in Virginia, which again, in hour 2, we're going to be discussing the bus that caught fire for Governor Winsome Sears. That seems a little random, does it not? I mean, just pointing that out. Does that not seem a little random to anybody else? All right, so since we're still talking about the shutdown, let's keep that going. So, effective right now, and again, remember, this is with Senate Democrats apparently going home, which means nothing's going to be done probably until at least Tuesday, which was kind of my thought anyway. I think they are doing everything they can to try to influence these elections that are happening on Tuesday to see if they can motivate their base enough. Look, I'm going to say this before I get into the local stuff, because there are going to be local impacts here in Oklahoma, of course, because food stamps are about to be gone. Now, from what I understand, if you have any left on your card, they will still work. But for anybody who expects your food stamps anywhere between the 1st to the 10th, you are probably not going to get them. And if you do, they will probably show up much later. I don't really know how that works. But despite what the lefties keep wanting to tell you, USDA does not have the money to fund SNAP, especially not for the entire month. They've already done it once. They cobbled together $9 billion to make sure that everybody got their food stamps in October. They weren't expecting to have to do it again in November, and they don't have enough money. Even if they tried to, that would pull the remaining $4.5 billion they have as an emergency fund, apparently, to send food over to people that may or may not be facing disaster. And that is only about enough to fund SNAP for 2 weeks anyway, which means everybody would get a partial payment. Now, again, in Oklahoma, there are about to start being some issues here. According to KOCO Channel 5 out of Oklahoma City, state employees are facing furloughs amid federal shutdown. So hundreds of Oklahoma workers are being sent home without pay as federal funds begin to run dry. It looks like those furloughs will be beginning on Sunday. So according to Fox 25 out of Oklahoma City, if the government does not reopen by November 1st, Oklahomans will not receive new SNAP benefits for the month. And again, that's insane to me. That we have the Democrats who keep on it. Well, this is our only leverage point. They keep saying that to you over and over and over again. You know why they're using it as a leverage point? Because they know the ACA is terrible. They know it sucks. They know it didn't do a damn thing that they told you it was going to do. Let's give you a flashback. If you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. I know my Obama sounds a bit more like Bernie Sanders. I never really could figure that one out. But that was one of my favorite lines during the whole ACA spin-up. You're going to get to keep your doctor. It's going to save the average American families $4,000 a year. You know what? That all sounded really awesome on paper. It really did. And I know why so many people were like, ooh, this could be great. But the problem is, and I keep trying to tell people this, in this world, you get what you pay for. You want to talk about healthcare costs being low and how you don't have to pay out of pocket to get things done in places like Canada and Great Britain? Those folks still come here. With as broken as our system is, most of them still come here when they have to have major procedures done, because in their worlds, you could die before you get treatment in those countries. And they know this. The Democrats knew this too. We are, and if you don't understand what is happening, and sorry, I just realized I don't have this. I left myself off the screen. Some of you don't care. That's fine. But if you don't understand what's happening, let me put this to you in as fine a point as I can. They are pushing us towards the old paradigm of how many potatoes do you eat versus how many that you actually produce. So how many potatoes you consume versus the number of potatoes you produce starts determining your relative usefulness to society. This is why the things they don't really call death panels have started to spring up in Canada and also Great Britain. And for people that are even suffering from what is deemed major untreatable depression can go sign up for a needle in their arm if they really, really want to, because that's less of a strain on resources. The problem is, and not going to steal thunder from Speaker Johnson, but I'm going to paraphrase something. What the government giveth, the government can taketh away. This is the religion of the state. They want you dependent upon them for everything and for all of your needs, so that you cannot stand up against them, so that they can do whatever they wish, whenever they wish it, and you can't do or say anything, or you risk not having access to your house, your car, your job, or food. So for those of you that are feeling fear right now, for those of you that don't know what you're going to do, because, and again, I have been dependent on these programs before, so please understand I am not trying to throw stones. But I am telling you, if you are somebody who up until now has bought into all the Democratic BS and how they were always going to take care of you and how you're never going to have to worry about anything, then if you haven't figured out by now that you have been lied to, I really don't know what else to tell you. And if you are afraid of what happens tomorrow when you don't have access to food stamps anymore, if you are able to, you need to start figuring out how to get off of these programs. And I understand how scary that can be. I talk about this all the time as somebody who used to supervise people. I had people who would refuse promotions because it would push them over the level to be able to receive their benefits. It would cost them more than the buck or $2 that I was able to get them per hour on paper, because they would lose so many of their bennies. Then you've got the people that I know for a fact abuse the system. You've got housefuls of illegals living in the same trailer that are all basically working under the table for cash and then applying for benefits and receiving the full amount. You want to know what, the funny thing about that chart, the chart they pulled up during that conversation that they were just having, the part that they didn't tell you was one of the reasons those benefits have exploded is because people that aren't here legally have been given access to those benefits in one form or another, whether it's through New York City funding EBT cards. Where do you think that money came from? It didn't come from New York City. I guarantee you at least 80% of it came from the federal government. What I love, and I see this all the time, because everybody keeps, talking about the difference between Massachusetts and Oklahoma and how Massachusetts is supposedly first in education, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. Nobody wants to talk about the fact that Massachusetts has a much larger pool to get tax dollars from. So it's really easy when you have double and triple the population to start throwing yourself around as some sort of a powerhouse. Let's also not forget that Massachusetts has Romney Care. I believe that's the state he came from as far as governor, if I remember correctly. And it's terrible too. I know people that live in Massachusetts that complain about it all the time, but it looks good on paper. That's the problem with communism. It always looks good on paper. And then you try it and you realize that paper and practice are not the same. The problem with communism is eventually everybody who is trying to contribute to the system gets really pissed off about the fact that there are other folks that are able to take advantage of the system without having to contribute to it. And that becomes the beginning of the end of the socialist slide into communism. And then what ultimately happens, because this is how it always works. And if you don't believe me, you can look at history. It proves it out. You go from a capitalist system, which is fairly new, back to a socialist system, which has been around a little bit longer, back to a communist system, and eventually it degrades into full-on authoritarianism because once people have power, they don't want to let it go. That's where we're headed. New York City is going to be the canary in the coal mine, and I'm going to say this again. It is not the GOP's responsibility in New York City to save the Democrats from their own mistakes. Vote for Sliwa. If you're independent, vote Sliwa. If you're conservative, vote Sliwa. If you don't want the dude back in office who killed your grandparents and you live in New York, vote for Sliwa. If you don't want a commie in office, vote for Sliwa. Let's send these people an actual message. The message can be either we're not going to let you destroy the capitalist capital of the world, which New York City has become, whether anybody wants to admit it or not, or it's done, it's over. Those are the messages that we're sending effective Tuesday. Same thing is happening in California with Prop 50. You have a choice. You can either keep your control, as much of it that you have over there, and tell them no on this redistricting thing, or you can let it happen and let New York and New York City and the entire state of California basically fall off the map, so to speak, because they will be gone. They will be worthless to us for as long as these things happen. And whether you want to admit it or not, when Prop 50 passes, if it does, they are never going to give that power back to the independent committee. Now, I still think it is a lost cause because, it makes zero sense for them to even be worrying about it. Because one, what are they going to do? Squeeze out maybe one or two districts that are usually purple into solid blues? They already count in the purple, so they get the results they want anyway. But conservative Californians need to decide, are you going to fight for your state or are you going to let it fall? Conservative New Yorkers living in New York City need to decide, are you going to fight for your city or are you going to let it fall? New Yorkers who live outside of the state of the city of New York, are you going to let New York City dictate how you live? Or are you going to do something come the next election to put a governor in power in the state of New York to make sure that Mamdani, if he does win, is less effective as a communist asshat? Those are the questions every single one of you should be asking yourselves right now if you have a dog in these particular electoral fights that are about to kick off. For those of you that are in Virginia, do you want things to continue the way they have been? Or are you going to turn the reins back to the same people who just went home instead of making sure that your constituents were able to feed their families in the month of November? These are all questions every single one of you should be asking yourselves. I will leave you to that while we take the break to allow to give you some time to ruminate, shall we say. Again, my name is Rick Robinson. This is the Rick Robinson Show. We do this thing every Tuesday through Friday, starting at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Don't forget the Weekend News Roundup has changed time slots. We are moving that to 3 p.m. Eastern to give some other folks who want to contribute time to be able to do so. So the new time will be kicking off effective today, and I do believe we will have both Brad Slager and Amy Curtis from Town Hall hanging out with me for the hour, or as much of the hour as they want to hang out for. But we'll talk about that more later. Let's take a break. I need more coffee because there's not enough coffee in the world lately. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Talk for the people, talk that's real. The Rick Robinson Show, where we say what we feel. You washed me clean, you called me home. Mercy poured where sin had grown.
Not by my works, but by your grace. You made me whole. You took my place.
When I can't see, still I believe your promise stands. You carry me. You're the anchor of my soul, firm and secure. The strength I hold when I'm unsure. My hope, my heart, forever yours.
peace has calmed the storm inside. Your love will ever be my guide.
I'll walk in grace, I'll rest in truth, abiding here, I'm bound to you. In the breaking, in the flame, you remain.
When my strength is gone, my faith still holds.
You're the anchor of my soul. You're the anchor of my soul, firm and secure. The hope that stands forevermore. My faith, my peace, my life restored. Jesus, you're my anchor and my shore. Jesus, you're my anchor and my shore. They shut the lights down in the city, say the system's on the ropes, while the same hands that broke it hold your paycheck and your hopes. They'll sell your sweat for silver, call your sacrifice relief, but every drop of truth we bleed writes another line of belief. Freedom isn't free, it's carved in blood and fire and stone. It's the price of standing tall when they tell you to kneel and go home. They can lock up every promise, tax the air we breathe, but they'll never chain the hearts of those who still believe. 'Cause freedom isn't free. They preach peace from marble towers while they fence off your front yard. They wave a flag made out of rules and call obedience smart. They'll brand your voice as danger, they'll mock your faith as greed. But freedom don't need permission, it just needs men who bleed. Freedom isn't free, it's carved in blood and fire and stone. It's the price of standing tall when they tell you kneel and go home. They can lock up every promise, tax the air we breathe, but they'll never change the hearts of those who still believe. 'Cause freedom isn't free. Freedom isn't free, it's written in red on history's page. A warning to the tyrants and the cowards of the age. They can bury us in silence, but the truth still screams. Freedom isn't free. Freedom isn't free.
Not to be a backseat driver, but can you say for sure you got the best monthly payment possible on your auto loan? Could it be that you might have gotten a better deal by shopping the loan at a few places and have a lower car payment? Next time, before you go car shopping, visit Communication Federal Credit Union first. Our auto loan experts will find you a perfect loan and get you the lowest monthly payment we can. Communication Federal, your auto loan experts. Restrictions apply. Federally insured by NCUA.
The following program contains coarse language and adult themes. Listener discretion is advised.
From red dirt roads to the Capitol steps, Rick's calling truth, no time for regrets. Fire in his voice, facts in his hand, talking sense to the heart of this land. It's the Rick Robinson Show where the truth rides high. No spin, no script, just an eagle in the sky. From D.C. to Tulsa, he's calling it out. Mic in his hand, yeah, he's got the clout. Heartland Radio, raw and real. Tune in, speak up, and feel what we feel. He's breaking down the noise, cutting through the lies, shining light where the shadow hides. With guests in the mix and callers on cue, he's a voice for the many, not the few. Well, grab your coffee, raise that flag, stand your ground, never wave that rag. News with a backbone, voice of the free. Rick's got the pulse of liberty. It's the Rick Robinson Show, bold, unafraid. Truth bombs drop in a red state parade. From the plains to the power, he's speaking it loud with a
All right. Welcome back into the program. Want to give BZ a quick shout out in the chat. Sorry it took me so long to notice you were there. The chat was kind of empty, so I wasn't paying attention to it. But we're back. We're live. I hope everybody's having a great Friday, especially those of you that are hanging out on the feeds. We've got a few hanging out with us. But again, I'm sure a lot of folks are hungover that did like Halloween parties and stuff last night. We've got other folks getting ready for Halloween parties tonight. So, this is one of the times of years that our numbers dip a little bit, which is usually why some folks start taking time off. Speaking of which, the week of Thanksgiving, I will not be here. Don't call me. No, I'm just kidding. For those of you who have my number and have access to me, you're still welcome to talk to me, but I will be off that entire week. It has occurred to me that I have not taken a full week off without it being due to some sort of an emergency or me being sick as crap since 2019. So that's a long time to not take any kind of vacation. And I'm going to be fixing that. And I think Thanksgiving week is probably one of the best weeks to do that because usually most of my crew was like, we're not going to really be able to do anything on our normal nights anyway because we're getting ready for Thanksgiving. So I'm going to turn everything over to Jeff. He will figure out how to put up some magic for you guys to listen to. I know usually Thanksgiving week is when we start kicking off replaying all of our holiday specials. Don't forget, coming up in December, we also have The Wizard of Oz will be our winter production this year. That's another one that's kind of been in the works for a while. I have been, I guess, pre-warned that, hey, Al, from the guy who gets like 2 weeks off from his job on a regular basis, I don't want to hear anything from the peanut gallery, sir. Anyway, thanks for stopping by, Al, by the way. I know you've been really, really busy lately, so it's always fun to see faces popping into the chat that I don't always get to see. Speaking of which, there will be a He Said, She Said tonight. I'm still working on getting the set decorated for Halloween, so we'll be working on that later. Also, for those of you that are clicking in because you're expecting the weekend news roundup to start in about 45 minutes, yeah, that ain't happening this week. We moved it. It is now 3 p.m. Eastern. So for BZ, if he wants to come back and check that out, he's welcome to, but that'll be around noon your time now. For anybody else, the reason we're moving it is because it's I've been trying to expand the roster of talent that comes on for that show. And by moving it later in the day, we get closer to the 5 o'clock news dumps anyway, which is kind of what this show is intended for. and it also opens it up for more contributors. So for today, we will have Brad Slager and Amy Curtis joining us for the weekend news roundup, which kind of started as just kind of a riff to get you guys ready for the weekend on this show, and then kind of developed into its own. I'm actually going to start branding it out as a partnership between KLRN Radio and the Digital Beacon, since I haven't really been doing much over there. We do try to make that one more of a straight reporting kind of show. Anyway, that's enough about that and the station promotion, but make sure you come back tonight starting at 8:30 p.m. Eastern for the Halloween edition, official Halloween, because it's always supposed to be on the 31st, but it isn't always done that way though. So tonight, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. I don't know what we're talking about yet. We'll figure that out once I get done with all my other workload for the day. All right, so other things to talk about. Let me get back into my show notes because that's on a different tab. So it looks like we're 2 weeks into the peace deal, and it's already proving more fragile than a lot of people thought. I guess at this point, Israel is accusing Hamas of violations. I don't know why anybody would have been surprised by that, but here we go. So we've got that going for us. Let's see what else we've got going on in the news. Oh wow. All right. So this literally just came out. Like a minute ago. So this is from Strafe, I think STRAEIFF. I guess that's Strafe. I don't know. From Red State. So there's a new Democrat plan to win the shutdown fight. It's this. The Trump administration plans to pay military members Friday by using a mix of legislative and Defense Department funds, according to an official with the White House Office of Management and Budget. It would be the second time the White House has been able to avoid missing a pay period for troops. However, the new Democratic talking point is that Trump broke the law to pay the troops. Oh, good. These people, I swear. I don't. How are they even polling at all? I mean, I know right now they have like an overall approval rating of like 19%, but how are these numbers not negative yet? That's my question. I really don't get it. I don't understand it, and I don't know. So that's the new talking point, and I'm sure you're going to start seeing this spin up over the next few days, unless they cave. It'll be hard for them to cave today, since apparently the Senate Democrats went home. While millions of Americans get ready for not having food access tomorrow, the same people that keep saying that Republicans only care about children until they're out of the womb basically just sentenced millions of families dependent on food stamps to being stressed about how they're going to feed themselves for political reasons, no less, which is the funnest part of all of this when you really stop and think about it, because they have been screaming for weeks now that the longer the government shuts down, the better it is for them, because it's going to anger their base. Now you've got people that are putting out TikTok videos talking about rioting and looting starting tomorrow, and the Senate Democrats went home. Sorry, I needed a sip of coffee on that one. But the Senate Democrats went home. All right, so we've got other stuff to talk about. So I don't remember if I talked about this yesterday or not, but I meant to. Amish and I talked about this topic the other night, but I thought it would be important to talk about it here, because it's kind of a sign that in the midst of everything that's going on with the Republicans and the Democrats and the political infighting regarding the shutdown, the world, in my opinion, is starting to heal, because brands are being allowed to start having fun again. They're allowed to have senses of humor. As a matter of fact, you remember just a couple months ago when the Cracker Barrel brand stepped on all the rakes and decided to streamline how their restaurants looked and streamline their menu and everything else. Again, we talked about that. That wasn't what you thought it was. There has been a corporate push around all of these brands to make their buildings as generic as possible. Because remember, even with the franchises, most of the franchises, the land is owned, including the building, by the actual owners of the brand. So the more uniform those buildings are, whether it's a McDonald's, a Cracker Barrel, a Carl's Jr., Taco Bell, and if you'll notice, they're all kind of starting to look the same. They all went from really cool, fun places to hang out to a bunch of restaurants having midlife crises and looking gray, dull, and boring for a reason. If the franchises fail, it makes it easier for the owners of the property to sell it to somebody else and let them try. So a McDonald's that used to have a very distinctive look was always going to be known as a McDonald's. This happened in my own home city where I was born, Midwest City. There was a Dairy Queen right down the street on 15th Street, and it was turned into a few other things over the years. But everybody always said, "Hey, you remember there? Yeah, there where the Dairy Queen used to be," because it had a very distinctive look to the building. Most McDonald's for the longest time had a very distinctive look to the building. They really don't anymore. Most Pizza Huts had a very distinct look to their building. I would say, honestly, a lot of their food quality started dying off when their creativity was allowed to die off because everything became cookie cutter. And I get it. It's cost effective to do that. That's why even places like Chili's and TGI Fridays now are mostly sous vide dishes or already in a package dishes that just get nuked and then served to you for the most part because it allows brand consistency. Same thing was happening with Cracker Barrel until people finally spoke up. But again, this isn't what everybody thinks it is. This is a corporate decision to make things easier if it becomes necessary to sell the buildings. So that's exactly why Cracker Barrel was doing what they did. It blew up in their faces. They lost tons of money over it. They've lost a few customers over it. And I will admit, we have a Cracker Barrel about 20 minutes from me because I live out in the middle of nowhere. And the last time I ate there, it was terrible compared to what it used to be like. And I hate that for them because as somebody who had a now ex-wife who could fry amazing chicken because of her grandmother's recipe, and I can't. I used to love to go there and get their fried chicken because it was the closest to home cooked that I could find. I can cook almost anything. For some reason, I cannot figure out how to fry chicken. It's just weird. But anyway. All right. So again, in the vein of trying to have a little bit of fun on Fridays, let's talk about this because JD Vance knocked it out of the park in Mississippi just not last night, but the night before at a TPUSA event. All right, sorry, I got distracted by the chat. Let me get this loaded. And then I'll get caught up in the chat. Or with the chat. I always get caught up in the chat. That's part of the problem, but I need to get caught up with the chat. All right, so here we go.
Any immigrant here, what
I don't have everything fixed. Oh, none of my levers were in the right positions. Remember, I am my own producer and he is me. So if I fire my producer, the show ends. Get that smile off your face, you bastards. Oh, of course, now you're going to do that to me. Of course you are, because I had to go over here. All right, so let's do that and do this. Huh. That's new. Well, remind me later. So apparently Restream has a new tool that I didn't know about that it just tried to tell me about. And I'm like, could you maybe not do those things to me during a live broadcast? That would be awesome. But then again, Restream's like, dude, you're almost always on a live broadcast, so I don't really know when to show you these things. Yes, I'm talking to myself while I'm figuring this out. And before anybody yells at me, according to my grandmother, it was okay to talk to yourself. It was even okay to answer yourself. It's when you found yourself asking yourself, what the bleep you were talking about, that you started having problems. I will neither confirm nor deny whether that third thing has ever happened to me, or with anyone in earshot.
any immigrant here, when did you guys decide that number? Why did you sell us a dream? You made us spend our youth, our wealth in this country and gave us a dream. You don't owe us anything. We have worked hard for it. Then how can you as a vice president stand there and say that we have too many of them now and we are going to take them out to people who are here rightfully so by paying the money that you guys asked us? You gave us the path, and now how can you stop it and tell us we don't belong here anymore.
So
and one more thing, I'm sorry, one more thing. Do
Sure.
you have to
There's
be...
a lot there. I don't know if I'm going to remember all this, but
Yeah,
I will try.
I'm sorry. I had to say all of this, and please take it with due... I mean, I'm saying all of
course.
this with
No,
due
go ahead.
respect. I
Please.
have no
Thank you.
intention of causing a scene here or anything, but...
We're not close to causing a scene.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
But we talked about Christianity, all of this. I'm not even Christian, and I'm here standing to show support. Why are we making Christianity one of the major things that you have to have in common to be one of you guys, to show that I love America just as much as you do? Why is that still a question? Why do I have to be a Christian?
Okay. So there was a lot there, and I'm going to try to respond to as much of it as I can. So on the question of immigration, so first of all, I can believe that we should have lower immigration levels, but if the United States passed a law and made a promise to somebody, the United States, of course, has to honor that promise. Nobody's talking about that. I'm talking about people who came in violation of the laws of the United States of America, and I'm talking about in the future reducing the number of people. Sorry, what?
May I continue on that? Because when you just said you are not stopping with the people who came here legally, right? But you are pushing out policies that hurt us. And these policies are not even solving the problems. These policies are just creating chaos.
Ma'am. Okay, so again, I'm gonna finish answering the question, and then if I've answered all 9 of your questions in less
Okay,
than
I have to say
15
this real
minutes,
quick, and it's going to come
then we
across
can keep
racist.
on
I don't care.
going.
Thank you. Come again.
We got to have a little fun, right? So here's the thing. I can believe that the United.
Okay, so there wasn't. See. This is why I don't always like pulling my quotes from other sources, because I thought there was going to be more there. I really did. I think there might be some more to it down here somewhere. So hang on. This may be a continuation of the same thing. Okay, so hang on. Let me see if I can make this one work. Let me just do this now because I know it's going to hate me anyway. So, share this tab instead.
To their own arrangement here. The way that
I think it's on the screen, but I honestly don't remember. All right, yeah, it looks like it is. All right, here we go. I think this may be a continuation of the same discussion, but that ended kind of abruptly for me, so I wasn't a fan.
everybody has to come to their own arrangement here. The way that we've come to our arrangement is she's my best friend. We talk to each other about this stuff. So we decided to raise our kids Christian. Our two oldest kids who go to school, they go to a Christian school. Our 8-year-old did his first communion about a year ago. That's the way that we have come to our arrangement. But thank you. My 8-year-old was also very proud of his first communion. Thank you, guys. I'll tell him that Ole Miss wishes him the best. But I think everybody has to have this own conversation when you're in a marriage. I mean, it's true for friends of mine who are in Protestant and Catholic marriages, friends of mine who are in, atheist and Christian marriages. You just got to talk to the only advice I can give is you just got to talk to the person that God has put you with, and you've got to make those decisions as a family unit. For us, it works out. Now, most Sundays, Usha will come with me to church. As I've told her and I've said publicly, and I'll say now in front of 10,000 of my closest friends, do I hope eventually that she is somehow moved by the same thing that I was moved in by church? Yeah, I honestly do wish that, because I believe in the Christian gospel, and I hope eventually my wife comes to see it the same way. But if she doesn't,
He actually didn't. I'll give you the full context in a minute.
Everybody has free will, and so that doesn't cause a problem for me. That's something you work out with your friends, with your family, with the person that you love. Again, one of the most important Christian principles is that you respect free will. Usha's closer to the priest who baptized me than maybe I am. They talk about this stuff. My attitude is you figure this stuff out as a family, and you trust in God to have a plan, and you try to follow it as best as you can, and that's what I try to do.
All right, so I wanted you to hear as much of that as you could in his own words. Now, I thought the same as BZ just said. It kind of felt to me based on that clip that Vance might have flubbed it, but I also know what was said in that clip. So hang on, I'm looking for the rest of it here. So we're actually going to go back to this. And this was the question. We're going to read her stuff again. When did you guys decide that number? Why did you sell us a dream? You made us spend our youth, our wealth in this country and gave us a dream. You don't owe us anything. We have worked hard for it. Then how can you, as a vice president, stand there and say that we have too many of them now? So by paying the money that you guys asked us, you gave us a path. And now, how can you stop it and tell us we don't belong here anymore? So the thing about that is, when we go into the clips, again, the clips didn't really do Vance justice in this, because I think there's actually some audio that continues it, and I missed it. But I'm gonna go ahead and just read the transcript because I think it'll be easier. So this was the part of the response that you didn't hear in the first clip. Just because one person or 10 people or 100 people came in legally and contributed to the United States of America, does that mean we are committed to let in 1 million or 10 million or 100 million? My job is not to look out for the interest of the world. My job is to look out for the people of the United States. I can believe that the United States should lower its levels of immigration in the future, while also respecting that there are people who have come here through lawful immigration pathways that have contributed to the country. But just because one person or 10 people or 100 came in legally and contributed to the United States of America, does that mean that we are thereby committed to let in 1 million or 10 million or 100 million people in the future? No, that's not right. We cannot, and I'll go to finish. We cannot have an immigration policy where what was good for the country 50 or 60 years ago binds the country inevitably for the future. There are too many people who want to come to the United States of America, and my job as vice president is not to look out for the interest of the whole world. It is to look out for the people of the United States. Now, the American dream is supposed to be secured for the American people first. Remember, we talk about this all the time on this program, on America Off the Rails, and any of the other co-hosted brands where I get to come on and talk about it when it applies. This goes back, and I always remember this, I guess, because I worked for an airline for like 4 years. I always remember the stewardess speech. I know they don't call them that anymore. It's flight attendants now, old man. Shut up. Anyway, where they're showing you they're doing the exit points, and the exits are located here and at the rear of the plane and at the front of the plane. And then they're talking about, in the event of an emergency and cabin depressurization, you will see a mask drop from the compartment over your head. Please take your mask, secure it to your face, and fasten it behind your head as securely as possible before you assist anyone else. You know why they tell you that? Because if you try to help somebody else before you put your own mask on, you're probably going to pass out. And then you're not going to be any help to anybody. I'm going to say this again. If the Democrats had their way, this country would have already been obliterated, and there would have already been something standing in its place that we wouldn't recognize. That was the plan when Hillary Clinton was supposed to be handed the baton after Barack Obama. The American people stopped it. Then the Democrats stole it. I said what I said. Then the American people have stopped it again. And now the Democrats, because they thought this was all going to be over, almost 10 years ago now, they are beside themselves because they have thrown everything they can at this person. They've opened the borders wide to try to make sure that people that shouldn't be able to vote voted to keep them in power. And it is working in certain places, but not really working in others because people are starting to figure out the game. And the remarkable thing about all of this, and I know I'm ranting right now, but stay with me, I'll bring it home in a second, is this. Despite all of this, we are still fighting to keep our country alive. Despite all of this, Americans are waking up more and more every day as the Overton window has shifted so far to the left that even people that used to be Democrats look at their party and don't recognize it anymore. Yet we still have pockets of stupidity like happening in the capital of California and in the capital of the world, New York City, that we still have pockets of stupidity that we have to figure out how to eradicate. This question that was put to Vance is one of those pockets of stupidity, because how can you do this to us for those of us that have already come here legally? If you are here legally and you're already a citizen, none of this applies to you. We're not going to make you leave. We're just telling you that we can't keep letting in everybody who wants to come in. Other countries don't do that either. I've been seeing all these things pop up of, well, if you move to Greece, they'll give you this amount of money and you can move to a country villa and you can do this and you can do that. Then you click on the link and there's 8 million requirements to even be able to qualify. Greece is about to slide off into the ocean and they still have immigration requirements. Because they're a country. They're allowed to do what they want to do within their own borders and allowed to affect policy and implement policy as to how they interact with the rest of the world. Every other country on the planet is allowed to do that, save the United States of America. Somebody answer me as to why. I understand when this policy started, but this goes back to what he was just talking about. These immigration policies are 50, 60 years old. Some of these policies have been in place for longer than I've been alive. You know what else was happening for longer than I've been alive? Us becoming the atlas of the Western world. We can't do it anymore. And we shouldn't do it anymore because Europe is abdicating its responsibilities. We can't continue to try to hold everything up if they're going to let Islamism just run rampant on their shores. We can't do that anymore. Which is another reason why we're seriously looking at our immigration policies, because we're looking at, I guarantee you, they're not saying this, but they should be. Part of why they're looking at our immigration policies is because of what's happened in Michigan. Part of what's happening, or part of why they're looking at our immigration policies is because of what's happening in Texas. There are Islamic sects popping up in Michigan and Texas right now, where eventually, if we're not careful, just like in London, eventually there will be Sharia law zones. Sharia law and Christianity are completely incompatible with one another. They're incongruent with each other, and two opposing ideologies cannot exist in the same space at the same time for very long. If you don't believe me, just look at what happened between the Pilgrims and the Natives, because that story, as we're getting closer to Thanksgiving, is a lot different than what you've been told. You've been told the evil white man came in and just wanted their land and started fighting them for it. You know how I know? Because even back when I was a kid, when they were still teaching history before they changed it all to social studies, that was what we were told. And we bought it hook, line, and sinker. But the problem is, since they weren't telling you the entire story, there's parts of this that you might not know. I may actually put together a Thanksgiving special, but just to give you a Cliff's Notes version of it real quick, like the reason that the native population and the Pilgrim settlers went to war isn't what you think it is. What happened was is that Native Americans were starting to integrate Christian beliefs into their culture from being so interwoven with us. And the chiefs didn't want to have any of that. They liked the old ways. So it was their version of conservatism. They liked the old ways. They wanted to conserve them. They wanted to keep them in place. The difference is, and this came up during Manorama the other day, there are differing definitions of what conservatism means depending on what you structure it around. For Islam, conservatism is keeping all the women in burqas, not letting them drive, not letting them learn to read, not letting them go to school. So if London falls to Sharia, even though it will be a form of conservatism, as far as that goes, it is not the right form of conservatism, and there will be no hope for London from that point forward, because once Sharia is in place, you are a subject, period, and you are required to submit. Let's not forget, then Islam means submission, which should terrify all of you. But the thing about it is, with our original history that nobody wants to talk about, some of the tribes of the chiefs started wars with the settlers because they didn't like the fact that Jesus, in their mind, was a peacenik. Because he was. I mean, he wasn't a hippie, but he did preach peace and tolerance within reason. And the tribal chiefs didn't want anything to do with that. They liked being able to go to war whenever they want. They liked being able to rape and pillage whenever they wanted. Because despite the watered down hippie version of what we found when we got here, according to most leftist history books, these were not idyllic people. They warred with one another. They fought with one another. They slaughtered one another. They raped women and children and then took them back and made them slaves. The settlers coming onto the shore started impacting how a lot of the tribal everyday type folks felt about those things, and the chiefs became very angered by those things. So they decided to basically gin up a war. Now, again, that was a Cliff's Notes version. I will probably do. I am thinking about putting together a Thanksgiving special that I'm going to do in advance so Jeff can run it, because I will not be here. before anybody says anything. And if I can't get it done, then I'll put it out sometime between Thanksgiving and Christmas because it still falls into the same vein anyway. Anyway, let's take the final break of the show. I know we're long. Again, this one is also something else that was put together by me. This was inspired by the King and Country Bible study I did on Wednesday night. Took me a couple of days to get it put together because I'm starting to get more picky about lyrics now that I'm figuring out how all this stuff works. But this one is called The Anchor of My Soul, and it is inspired by the Kingdom and Country episode that aired live on Wednesday night. I will have the archives caught up by tomorrow for anybody who wants to check it out. I'm going to get some of those done today, but I also have to write for Twitchy because I haven't put out much this month, and I need to get something on the books over there. So that is on my books for later today, too. But let's take a break. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
You washed me clean, you called me home. Mercy poured where sin had grown.
Not by my works, but by your grace. You made me whole. You took my place.
When I can't see, still I believe your promise stands. You carry me. You're the anchor of my soul, firm and secure. The strength I hold when I'm unsure. My hope, my heart, forever yours. Jesus, you're my anchor and my shore.
Your peace has calmed the storm inside. Your love will ever be my guide.
I'll walk in grace, I'll rest in truth, abiding here, I'm bound to you. In the breaking, in the flame, you remain.
When my strength is gone, my faith still holds.
You're the anchor of my soul. You're the anchor of my soul, firm and secure. The hope that stands forevermore. My faith, my peace, my life restored. Jesus, you're my anchor and my shore. Jesus, you're my anchor and my shore.
Is it conceded that I keep chair dancing to the stuff that I've been writing lately? This is another one, by the way. Welcome back into the program, ladies and gentlemen. Final segment of the Friday edition. Don't forget, the Weekend News Roundup is still coming. It's just coming later today. 3 p.m. Eastern is its new Friday time slot, partly because I keep falling off this cliff on Friday and not coming back to work until later tonight. So I'm trying to fix that by giving myself some work that I have to show up for in the middle. So we're back. We're live. Final segment. Make sure you come back for that tonight, or today, and then also come back tonight for He Said, She Said. All right. So I can help you, brother. Even if it takes a while, I can start teaching you. Trust me. I have taught people older than you how to work computers at call centers. So trust me, I can do it. Anyway, sorry, I was responding to BZ in the chat. So anyway, let's take a quick look around the headlines. Whoa, whoa. So this one came out just a little bit ago, actually about 10 minutes ago, and we missed it because I was on a rant. But Fetterman has had enough with his own party. I expect this person to probably refile as an independent soon because the Pennsylvania Dems are going to come for him hard, I'm afraid. And I agree with BZ to a point. I don't think we necessarily need or want him in the Republican Party. However, um, I don't know how to finish that sentence because the problem is he's not an 80-20 guy. He's a 20-80 guy. So if we could get him closer to 80-20, I might be okay with it, but I don't know if we'll ever get him there. But I will say this, he's one of the few people in his own party currently that still has any type of common sense. And this is one of the clips of him kind of losing it with his own folks, and this just came out a little bit ago. I think it was from Red State. I'll double check the sourcing in a moment. Hang on. I don't know what happened there. Something shifted.
And get on with their lives when the things that they've depended on now is gone.
All right, I was on the right tab. Restream went nuts, so I don't know if you guys could hear that. So if you could hear the audio, we're going to back it up. It's not a very long clip, but here's the video to go with it.
So what are you hearing back home about SNAP expiring on Saturday?
I'm saying that I will witness it firsthand. My wife, Giselle, she develops the free store in our community, and it distributes food 3 times a week. And her lines have already got longer. And now I will encounter people that have no SNAP benefits starting on Saturday, and I don't have an explanation for them. All I could say is, I'm sorry. It's an absolute failure what occurred here for the last month, and now things are really going to land. And imagine being a parent with a couple kids and how you're going to fill their refrigerator and pack their lunches and get on with their lives when the things that they've depended on now is gone because we can't even agree to just open things up. For a Democrat, we're not allowed to just open this up. I mean, then our party has bigger problems than I thought we might have already. It's like, that's not controversial. Pay everybody. And you have our workers here borrowed over $350 million to pay their own bills. Like, it's a failure. And like I said, to all of the viewers, I'm apologizing that we can't even get our shit together and just open up our government.
Schumer said this gets better politically every day for Democrats. What do you say to that?
Yeah, well, ask the hungry people on Saturday. It's like, that's the thing. Americans are not leveraged. This is not some shitty game show about who's winning or whatever. It's just like we have to be better than this and just open this up. And I do, talk to any number of Republicans who they agree that we have this conversation about extending these tax credits.
All right, so it sounds like somebody was getting cranky with him off camera. I wish we were able to make that out a little bit better. But I mean, BZ has a good point. We are probably, I think we're the most obese nation on the planet right now. So I hate to sound like a dick because this goes even for me. we could probably miss a few meals and still be okay. And remember, I'm talking about me just as much as I'm talking about any of you. But as we get ready to close things out, I just want to remind you, for those of you that are in abject terror right now, remember this feeling, because this is what happens when you turn your survival over to the government. Some of you have done it not willingly, but because you've bought into the stuff of, if you kick so and so out, we can get you into an apartment, we can get you a food allowance, we can get you money for a while so you figure something else out, because the state has been attacking the nuclear family since the 60s. I'm still putting the pieces together for this for a future juxtaposition episode, because we've skirted it, but we've never officially talked about it. I still think the women's liberation movement was tied to the CIA. And I'm going to explain it in the final couple of minutes, and I'm going to let you know when I do figure out how to turn this into an episode. It's probably going to make Amish cranky, but we've talked about it before. And that's because, think about this from a perspective of the system that we find ourselves in now versus the capitalist system that we used to have in the 50s and 60s, where our economy was strong enough and our dollar was strong enough that one person could work, the other could stay home with the children, and then they had a constant sphere of influence from the home, because mom was there when they got home to counterbalance anything that they were being taught in school. And at that point, there was almost no daylight between what was being taught in school and what the parents believed. What they were able to do almost instantly is double the tax base. The moment they started making little Susie Homemaker feel like that she could bring home the bacon, fry it up in the pan, and have everything, let me tell you, as somebody who tries to make sure that I do have everything, you can't. I am going to have to start figuring out what projects I'm going to start cutting back on a little bit, because I'm trying to do too many things at a time, and because my attention has been so split, I don't have enough time to devote to the things that could really be taking off from me. That is my decision. I'm one of those people. If I don't multitask, I don't feel like I'm alive. I also am somebody who, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing or not, thrives better when I have deadlines. But the thing about all of this is, when you think about this from this perspective, they got mom out of the home because, one, it instantly doubled the tax base. A lot of the companies that were around at the time started realizing that since mom had money in the pocket and now dad had money in the pocket, they could bump up their prices a little bit here and there because there was extra income that wasn't there before. Then you had the extra added benefit of mom not being home when little Jimmy comes home from school. So therefore, and we had Jen and I had a guest on last week who talked about this. The school resource officers and the teachers see your children in an awake state for more hours of the day than you do anymore. Do you think that's by accident? Do you really think that's by accident? Because I'm going to tell you, it's not. This was, and this has been their goal all along. The first step was to get the progressive income tax back, which, remember, they had a short-term income tax during the Civil War. Was the first time we'd ever had anything like it. It went away after the Civil War was over. And then for 50, 60 years, Democrats every 2 years went back to the House and said, hey, remember that progressive income tax we had? Wasn't that great? Look at all the things we were able to do. We should do that again. Republican, no, we're not doing that again. 2 years later, we remember that? Yeah. And then 25 cycles of that. Eventually, the Republicans said, you know what? Fine. We're gonna do this. If you think this is so great for the American people, we're going to let them decide. And then the Democrats used the same talking point they've been using ever since. Oh, don't worry about it. This isn't going to impact you. This is a 2% tax on the top 1% of the country. So if you're not one of those 1%ers, you're not even going to have to pay it. How long did that last? But it's the same talking point they've used ever since, because it still works. I don't know why it still works, because you can plainly see that they lie every single time, but for certain people, it still works. It's just nuts. So, and we're now seeing, and up until COVID, we were seeing the results of moms and dads not being in the homes, a lot of moms and dads not being in the homes together, because, government said, hey, get rid of that dude and we'll give you this, 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 and this. Guess what? Lots of white folks started taking advantage of that too. Because why not? If you can have the government paying half your bills, if you can have the government keeping your lights on, if you can have the government's footing most of your rent bills, and you don't want to do anything to make yourself better, why wouldn't you take advantage of those things? Because they're there. For the people who just want to be able to sit around and do nothing, they're there. But before COVID, we didn't realize how bad our education system had gotten. Now, when my kids were little, I still made them do certain things. And I've talked about it with my daughter now, who's raising her child, who is now realizing that she's going to have to start giving Gracie extra homework. Because even in kindergarten and headed towards first grade, she realizes she's not learning everything that she needs to. And I looked at my daughter when she said that to me, and I said, "You remember how much you hated me and how many times you cried when you were sitting at me at the kitchen table in first, second, and third grade when we started talking about simplistic ways of how our government works and things like that, so you can understand them? Remember how much you hated me for that, and now you want to do that with your child?" Okay, fine, Dad, you were right. Thank you. Moving on. But seriously, our education system is broken as far as we're concerned. But it's working just the way the government has always intended, and just the way the upper class, which never used to be a thing in America, have intended. People stupid enough that they don't want to improve themselves, that they want to be able to get an entry level job and use it to be able to pay all their bills. That's the most infuriating thing. As I ramble my way to the close of the show, because we're almost out of time, that's the most infuriating thing about this whole idea that somebody flipping burgers and pulling fries from a basket from McDonald's should be able to pay all of their bills. No, they should be able to pay all of their share of the bills. Because trust me, when I was in my 20s, I didn't live alone. I either had roommates or I had girlfriends until I got married. Because you share expenses. And that means that way, if you're not making enough to be able to pay your own bills, you have other people helping you be able to pay those bills. But the funny thing is, Gen Z thinks they've reinvented this whole thing because they're really good at reinventing the wheel over and over and over again. Because now they're talking, what do they call it now? Beneficial cohabitation was one of the things I read the other day. I'm like, what what? And then there was a dumbed down version of it that somebody else put out. But yeah, anyway. But look, I mean, what day 31 of the shutdown should be teaching you, especially if you are using programs like food stamps and everything else, is the government is not your friend. If you are able to, you need to start, even if it's incrementally, finding ways to get off of those programs so that you have control of your life again. Because freedom is important. Freedom was what started us on the course to where we are today, as we're nearing our 250th birthday. Because we're getting close to that. Anyway, we should probably get out of here. Don't forget, coming up in just what do we got? 3 hours? I guess if we're doing East, yeah, it's 3 hours. So don't forget, come back in 3 hours for the Weekend News Roundup with Brad Slager from Town Hall Red State and right here at KLRN Radio, myself from KLRN Radio and Digital Beacon US News, and Amy Curtis from Town Hall will be joining us as well for all or at least part of the program. She gets off from her shift around the same time that we're flipping the switch, so I don't know exactly when she's going to join us, but she is planning on joining us. So I hope everybody enjoys the rest of your Friday. Make sure you come back first for the Weekend News Roundup in a few hours, and then later tonight for He Said, She Said right here live on KLRNradio.com. My name is Rick Robinson, and it's Friday, you lucky some bitches. Enjoy your weekend. Bye, everybody. Oh, yeah, don't forget to come back tomorrow night for Juxtaposition Week 5 of Cryptids, even though it's the 1st of November, where we're going to have a panel, including SHR Media's BZ from BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, where we discuss cryptids in depth with a panel, and everybody kind of gets to pick their favorite and discuss. See you guys there. And before that, don't forget we also have Front Porch Forensics, too, so we've got a full line of programming tomorrow night as well, as far as I know. Bye, everybody. So that didn't work the way I wanted it to. Let's try that again. Say goodnight, Gracie.